everyone. Welcome to another episode of Win TV Live. I am so incredibly excited and honored to be here with ASL interpreter, is what he has there, but I'm going to say ASL interpreter extraordinaire, Billy Sanders, who I got to have a little pre interview with yesterday to hear about some of the amazing things he's doing coming up, which we'll share with you in a bit. But before we get into the nitty gritty, let's welcome Billy Sanders. Thank you so much for being here.
How you doing? Thank you so much.
How are you? That's the real question.
Blessed and highly favored.
Amen to that. Blessed and highly favored.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, I want the people to know a little bit before we get into what's happening this weekend, which you all know. The Informer is going to be there in full effect in Philadelphia this weekend, covering the Roots Picnic, which is this coming Saturday and Sunday. But as we learned about the picnic and some of the amazing things happening, we learned that Billy Sanders is playing a very key role in ensuring that all audiences are able to participate. So we'll talk about that in a second. But before we get into that, share a little bit with us about your journey into the world of ASL interpreting.
Okay. Thank you for having me again. I really appreciate it. Shout out to Denise.
She's the best.
She's the absolute best. Just as a disclaimer, especially for all of my mom first and foremost, who is deaf, and every deaf supporter of the Washington Informer. This was a last minute interview, and we cannot find an interpreter to the side of me to interpret this interview. So I don't want anybody to misconstrue that the Washington Informer was not intentional about making sure there was an interpreter for this interview.
Thank you.
It's all love. It's all
Thank you.
And shout out to Denise.
Yeah. As always, yes.
Yeah. How did I get started? My mom is deaf, so I was born interpreting, right? Like I came out the womb and had to tell my mom that the doctor said I was a boy, that type of thing.
Yes.
I've been interpreting ever since. Okay.
Yes.
So for all my other children of deaf adults, y'all understand what time that is, right? So I don't know when I started professionally per se. I think there was a lot of volunteering going on and voluntold going on before I transitioned into making this a full career. And now I'm just at a beautiful place where I get to build bridges for a lot of other Black interpreters to be that which people need us to be, right?
Well, tell us, what do people need you to be? What is the importance of your role in your words?
Very good question. People need us to be clear. People need us to be well versed in both English and American Sign Language in order to interpret the message faithfully and in real time, right? So if we're at an event like the Roots Picnic or any other music festival, it's all kind of deaf people coming to the event. A lot of artists actually do not recognize they have a huge deaf audience, right? And they're coming and they want to sing along, they want to sign along, and at the same time, not be delayed like a few bars back. And that's the art and the work that we do, right? So
thank you for that. And I think that's a perfect transition, because we talked a little bit offline about the importance of interpreters who can show up and really do justice to the artist's music. Again, before we get into Roots Picnic, what is that marriage? What is that relationship between the interpreter and the artist? Because I feel like in so many ways you all are performing as well.
There it is. Many times the relationship is non-existent. Many times. The reality of the game is that we are the physical embodiment of an accommodation, right? And so there are other accommodations being made throughout, throughout the event for anybody that needs an accommodation. So to ask if I have a relationship with the artist is almost like asking if anybody else providing an accommodation of any sort has a relationship with the artist. A lot of
Mm.
times, the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, meaning either somebody who's I don't want to point fingers, but somebody who's hosting the event doesn't inform the artist that there will be an interpreter on stage until right before they go on stage.
Wow.
So I may be able to get like a set list minutes before, from the actual stage manager or a road manager minutes before the artist goes on,
Wow.
and that only complements the preamble of the study that we had to do and the research we had to do to make sure that we were prepared for this artist, not knowing what they're going to perform. All right, so we usually don't have relationships with artists prior to or their team, but when we're on stage, we'll give them a shout out.
Of
That's
course.
how it goes. So a lot of times I don't get to engage with the artist. There's an X that we stand on, and that's where we do our work. We're no more, no more important than the cameraman who stands on his X and he's doing his job, right? So it's all love. You know what I mean?
So,
Yeah.
how are you able to do justice? How are interpreters able to do justice in bringing the funkiness, the vibes, the intention behind music so that uh, deaf fans are able to appreciate
Very good question.
it?
Um, well, I try to.
Sorry.
I am very intentional about surrounding myself with the best interpreters.
Mm,
That is a way that I am able to learn and glean from others, and they keep me sharp. They keep me honest. They keep me sharp. They keep me on my toes. You know what I mean? I love working with interpreters who can tell me no, right, and say that's not the right sign choice, or you need to tighten up, or what was that, Billy, right? And fortunately for the Roots Picnic for this coming up event, the agency Hands Up Productions allowed me the opportunity to run point for the event. And by running point, I was able to choose the entire interpreting team. And so for everybody coming, this interpreting team is some of the best some of the best music interpreters DC has to offer. Period. Right. This is the best of the nation's capital interpreters coming to Philly. So there are six of us, right, and they all are the truth. Right? Each and every last one of them are the truth. You can leave any one of them up on stage, and I can walk away and not think they're gonna be a YouTube sensation for messing up. I can leave any one of them on stage, and my mom is gonna bop from side to side because my mom is very hood. Okay, so my mom is gonna bop side to side, rocking with any interpreter for any artist, and that makes the experience magical for every deaf person coming to get their money's worth. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Okay, so tell us a little bit about Roots Picnic. You have curated this group of, is it seven including you,
No,
or
it's six
it's
including
six
me.
including you?
Yeah.
So six interpreters,
Mhm.
dynamite interpreters from the area. Are you all the only interpreters as part of the festival? And tell me a little bit about how you've curated this group with particular artists, etc.
Very good question. um, well, I ask people if they're available. Right.
Yeah.
That's first and foremost. Sometimes it fits people's schedules. Sometimes it doesn't. Thankfully, people earmark this event, a year ahead of time. Um, that helped me out a lot. These interpreters are already practicing. Once the Roots puts out on their social media all the artists, we immediately begin practicing. We immediately begin thinking which artists I can do or cannot, or which artists can I do the best. Right. And so what I try to do is ensure that we're maximizing everybody's potential and matching everybody's skill set with the artists that will bring the best out of them. Right. And so I'll ask everyone on the team, like, what are your preferences? Right. And of course, everybody lists everybody, including Usher and Lauryn Hill. Everybody want to do Usher and Lauryn Hill. and that's totally fine because
Yes.
I want this team to shine. Again, these are the best interpreters you're gonna find in DC, right? So you're not gonna see me interpreting the closing acts on any night. You're gonna see these amazing interpreters knocking it out the ballpark, right? Because they have put in the work. It's not just because they're skilled; they literally put in the work and have practiced time and time again. I, I, in addition to what they do, give them a whole series of prep materials that includes lyrics, live shows, because you think you hear the song, you know the song, but how it happens on stage is a very different experience. Many times they put the interpreters in what we call a dead space, which is right next to the speaker, and
Mm,
they don't give us a monitor. We may have headsets, but we're just in a dead space. So you really have to know the music, because if the artist comes out and they're talking to the mic and they're like, everybody say ho, and that's
yeah.
all you hear, right? Or they do this number,
Ah,
and now the audience is singing every word, and you cannot understand the audience,
yeah.
right? You're just in a dead space, and that comes with our expertise and our studying the music to the point where we know that we know that we know nothing is going to knock us off our square. Which is why I need the best interpreters in DC to come handle this 2-day concert.
I love that. And
Yeah,
so all the interpreters that we'll see Saturday and Sunday are from this
the
area.
DMV, absolutely.
That's amazing. And
Yeah,
so what does that mean for the DMV community? I have a certain sense of pride hearing it. Should
mhm.
others?
Everybody should have a pride for wherever they're from or wherever you're representing. Right?
Yeah.
I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota. Right? I think half of the team is actually born and raised from the DMV, and the
Wow.
other half were from other places. Right? But we still repping DC. Right? There, we're also repping the deaf community by which we serve. So I
Mm,
don't. I'd be remiss if I don't say that. I wish there was more money in the budget to provide a larger interpreter team. Then we could have deaf performers, like Justina Miles, who
mm,
is who lives in the DMV,
mhm.
and others. Right there, again, DC has a lot of amazing interpreters and deaf performers, right? So, but we even in if we're doing a person show or this 2-day concert, like we still represent the community that we come from,
Mhm.
and we can't afford to misrepresent them because they will talk about us at the cookout. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, you know it.
Yeah,
As
yeah,
they should. Having a community or communities that hold you accountable is important.
absolutely.
And so, tell me a little bit about what you're excited about going into this weekend. What are some of the things that you, as someone who's been putting in this work for quite some time, is looking forward to about this weekend in particular?
Uh, I'm an intellectual thug out here,
I love it.
so I really like the nerdy part, the science of interpreting, and so though people are there to look at the artists and sing along to their most favorite songs, that's dope. But again, not only are these the best interpreters coming out of the DMV, these are also scholars. Okay, Jerron Gilchrist just graduated with his master's degree. Right, we have Rodney LeBon, we have Cyrus Schofield, Dina Hobbs, Hossein Miller. These people are scholars. So not only are they scholars, they study the science of how they do what they do. So I'm looking forward to learning from how they interpret the same music I would interpret just a little bit differently. So I'm coming to steal all their signs. Okay, that's what I'm coming to do. Okay? I don't know about anybody else, but I love working with black interpreters.
Yeah.
And again, shout out to the Hands Up agency. It was actually white owned, no shot, no shade, but to give me the opportunity to use my power of influence to empower my people who are called by my name. That's i.e. Black, right? And create a unique team that reflects the construct by which we're interpreting, which is the Roots Picnic. You got 30,000 Black people in the building,
Yeah.
right? Coming from all parts of the world, literally, showing you this kaleidoscope of what blackness is, and then to see some of the nation's best interpreters interpreting this blackness at a high level is exactly what we're here for.
Yeah, and I guess that's just to go back to my question. That's
Mhm.
kind of a part of it. Is DC doing, or the DMV area doing, and I guess it's not a competition, but a better job in, or a standout job, or is Billy Sanders doing a big standout job to get the attention to be to have interpreters from this area at such a large event like this, or is it just proximity to Philly? I'm curious. I think it's such a big deal that people from the nation's capital get to represent in that way, on top of the many acts from the area.
So that's another good series of questions. Okay. Uh, Again, intellectual thug out here.
I'm feeling that. I love that.
Statistically speaking, black men represent less than 1% of the entire interpreting profession. Less than 1%, right?
Wow.
Black women make up about 6-7% of the entire profession, right? And this team, ironically, has 5 black men and 1 amazing queen,
Wow.
right? You're usually going to find it the ratio the other way around on larger platforms, and that's okay. That's okay. Is DC doing? I think DC is doing an amazing job as a as a network of different entities that add to the mix of providing accommodations, or these physical accommodations of interpreters showing up. We can start with the DC Mayor's office. DC Mayor has done a wonderful shout out to Muriel Bowser. Okay, uh, she has done an amazing job in ensuring accessibility and representation.
Mm.
Okay, she demands that we have deaf interpreters at her press conferences.
Wow.
It's the first mayor I know that has done that, right? Add to that, she has recently, as of last year, established staff interpreting positions for her office. That's a first. You'll see more interpreters at other people's press conferences. I just did a not flexing, but I just did the Baltimore mayor's press conference this morning, right? But even the
And
Baltimore mayor,
flex.
it's all
Unapologetically
good,
flex.
no flex. But I'm blessed and highly favored. But the
Yeah.
Baltimore mayor's office, which has a larger budget than DC, has yet to establish a staff interpreter position. The Maryland governor's office has yet to establish a staff interpreter position. DC Mayor Muriel Bowser has also established a new office for deaf and hard of hearing, right? Led by Carrie Cook, an amazing black deaf woman, right? She has a whole black deaf staff. Well, there's other folks that are not black, but she has an amazing staff, right? So like, and they have staff interpreters, right? So I think DC as a whole is leading the way in ensuring accessibility and representation, and more so equity of all things, right? So people have a voice at the table and not are spoken for or seen about, but they have they have a vested interest, and that's what I see throughout the entire community. Shout out to all the grassroots organizations in DC, right? There's Black Lives Matter the organization, but then there's Black Lives Matter the movement, which is an umbrella of a lot of grassroots organizations, and a lot of them provide interpreters at a lot of their events and trainings.
Mm.
Nobody's forcing them to do that. The Americans with Disabilities Act does not force them to do that, but they do it because we are promoting language justice. I don't want to start preaching right now. I'm feeling the spirit.
Please.
Okay, but
Please.
we are promoting language justice. Okay, and it is imperative that all our voices are heard, whether it's through verbal conversation or it's through our hands. Uh, I expect to see interpreters anytime I go anywhere in public. I expect to see interpreters when I show up to a rally, fighting for something that I believe in. I expect to see deaf people in the audience. I expect to see them see themselves because we have deaf civil rights leaders in the DMV. You know what I mean? Like, it's just the place to be.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I am just incredibly excited to see your team and you in action this coming weekend. Is there anything before we wrap that you'd like to plug, that we should be on the lookout either upcoming in your world, or about legislation or things happening in DC's deaf community that we should be on the lookout? Anything that you want to plug before we wrap?
Very good question. I'm going to say log into WashingtonInformer.com. Okay.
I love that.
Um, because Denise is intentional about covering, doing more coverage of not just interpreting from a hearing perspective, but covering the Black deaf community at large. And I look forward to seeing more of that. And I know you can find it at WashingtonInformer.com.
Look at you. Well, you know what, y'all, I promise you, we did not hire Billy Sanders to give that amazing plug, but he's absolutely right. You can certainly go to www.washingtoninformer.com, because as we have in our catchy theme song, where can you go to get all your news? Washington Informer.
Absolutely.
Uh, it is the place to go. And like I said, I am really excited that uh, Divine Destiny certainly presented this story. It is something that our informer audiences need to know about, and I think that the world needs to know about. It's such a great, as I shared with you yesterday, ministry that you're doing, and so thank
Won't he
you.
do it? Won't he
Won't he
do it?
do it? Won't he do it?
Won't he do it?
Uh, I'm gonna give this allow this plug before we completely wrap. What is your connection? Why do you love the Washington Informer so much? Other than the fact that we, are a reliable source of news for almost 60 years in the DC area, uh, there is something else that allows the Informer to have a special place in your heart. If you don't mind sharing, I think.
I see what you did right there. I see what you did right there. Okay. Um, shout out to my former wife, uh, attorney Denise Rowe. Um, her and myself raised this wonderful young man, Donovan. Donovan Rowe, who is the Washington Informer hosts the DC Spelling Bee, right? Shout out to the founder, DC Rolick Barnes. Her father
Yes,
started that, right?
Calvin
And
Rolark. Yep.
right, and Denise continued that tradition, which has given a lot of students throughout the DC area an opportunity to engage intellectually in competition, right? And along the line came my son. And my son is the first and only two-time Washington Spelling Bee champion, representing DC at the Scripps National Spelling Bee in 2011 and 2013. So if it was not for Denise continuing that vision and creating a safe space for my son to compete, um, you know, he, that, him winning that led to a whole series of other successes,
Yeah.
right? Because one success begets another, right? You take another leap of faith in betting on yourself. When he's seen that $1,000 check in his hands, right? It inspired him to do so much more, and he knew he could get paid if he invested in himself. So thank you so much, Denise. Thank you so much to the Washington Informer. I have nothing but love for the Washington Informer for continuing to be engaged in the community like that, to give students an opportunity to see themselves as far more than themselves. The more you read, the more you learn about yourself, right? And so now my son somehow magically likes to debate, and I don't, I don't know about that part, but he can debate other people, a lot more intellectually than he tries with me. But thanks to Denise, he can do that today.
Well, look, as someone who appreciates words myself, I'm gonna give Donovan the kudos for that. But
Shout out to him.
uh, don't get hurt, Donovan. Dad is still dad. Okay.
It's all good. Yeah, it's all good. I'm still corny in his eyes.
Of course.
Once you're a parent, you're just corny.
I get that, Donovan, but we already know your father said he's an intellectual gangster. We don't want the intellectual gangster to trump.
His mom is way smarter than me. Trust and believe. Trust and believe. But
No,
yeah, thank y'all so much. I really appreciate
really,
you.
no, that's so awesome, and just kudos to you all and to Donovan, certainly for being barrier breaking and record breaking with us, and all the work he's continued to do. It's because of his outreach that this all these pieces sort of got put together, and so we thank
Oh,
him,
okay.
and we also lift him up because
He's
this
celebrating a birthday coming up.
oh, I didn't realize that. So wait, happy birthday, Donovan.
Shout out.
Also,
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy
happy
birthday.
birthday.
Hey,
Oh yeah, we gotta
he
hit
will
it.
be 24.
Oh
24.
my
I
goodness.
know I look, but he'll be 24.
You look
Okay.
24 as well, Dad.
Praise him. Praise him. Keep that same energy, please.
Yes. No. So no, but it's also the week of the Scripps National Spelling Bee.
Absolutely.
So it was a perfect time to have this conversation, perfect time to have Dad come on and talk about the amazing work you've been doing. And thank you again for supporting so many different communities, and of course, supporting the Washington Informer. We appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks to all those who tune in. We see you out there. Y'all know what I like to say. Sharing is caring, and this in particular is such an important live to share. It's really great for our village to know the great work that's happening, not only in Washington, D.C., and the amazing interpreters we have here, but that it's going out and that the masses get a chance to experience some of the wonderful work that we have going on. And thank you to Billy Sanders for your intentionality behind diversity, equity, and inclusion in the interpreting space, and for bringing the DMV's finest to Philadelphia. We're going to show
Absolutely.
out this weekend.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Absolutely. All right. Thank you
absolutely.
so much.
Thank you.
Take care, y'all.
Take care.